one of the great reads that is out or coming out. Under the Black Hat, My Life in the WWE and Beyond. And the author joins us now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. This is a man I have been so enamored with, going all the way back to the early 80s when I was watching Mid-South Wrestling. My first exposure to professional wrestling, the days of the Rat Pack and Skandar Akbar and Junkyard Dog. And he was the voice of that, and he's been the voice of wrestling ever since then. It is a huge pleasure, not to mention one of the few Sooners that I really admire, being a proud Longhorn here. But it is such an honor to welcome Jim Ross. You can follow him on Twitter at JRS Barbecue or JRS BBQ. Excuse me. Jim Ross, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Stu. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Before we get to everything, let's just talk about our current situation with the COVID-19 and everything. How's everything going? I know you were off TV this past week. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Everything going well for you up in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, Stu. Thanks for asking. Just try to be smart. My son-in-law's father is about 73, I think. He just got diagnosed with damn virus, and he's now on a ventilator. So my two granddaughters, two grandpas, we're both getting up here in age a little bit, but it's a very emotional time for my family because we always think, well, that won't happen to me, or probably won't happen to me, or the odds are low, blah, blah, blah. So I'm taking this a lot more seriously than I did when it originally was being discussed. So, for me to if I go to Jacksonville, I got to go through 3 airports: Oklahoma City, Dallas, and the Jacksonville airport, obviously, and on 2 different airplanes. And I'm just really getting very leery of making that trip. I'm in a high risk group. I'm 68, and as much as I love my job and working with AEW, I love JR and my health more, and I don't want to be foolish. So I'm not sure where we're going moving forward but I think that could be said, Stu, of just about everybody. None of us know what the eventual outcome of this is going to be. We know what we hope it is. None of us know when the timeline is going to be, but obviously we know that we hope it's shorter than not, but we don't know. So it's really nothing like it in my lifetime has ever occurred, and I got to believe, Stu, that somewhere down the road, we're going to look back at this and we're going to say that changed our country.
Yes.
I just believe that there's so much collateral damage, so much people getting caught unprepared, this, that, and the other. So nonetheless, yes. I'm personally doing fine. I'm a lot more concerned about the folks out there listening and others than I am about, am I going to be back on AEW next week or the week after or whatever. No. I'll be back on as soon as it's safe, obviously.
Absolutely.
But, we got to be smart sometimes. I can't let my ego and my love for John Wayne overshoot my common sense.
Yes, sir. And my thoughts, prayers to your family. I hope everybody recovers and stays healthy and everything. Yes, and as I love wrestling, but I love JR and his health more too, and your health more too. So I want you back on, but when it's safe and it's sensible to come back on.
It's got to make sense. It's like a good wrestling match.
Yes,
it's like
sir.
A book. It's like a storyline. It's like an angle. It's like a match. It all has to make some degree of sense for people to really emotionally invest in it. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. I just got to continue to try to do things that make sense. And right now, it used to be, if you read the book, I really prioritized work way over my personal life. Not good. Not bragging about that, by the way. It's not the way to live. But luckily I had a hell of a wife.
Yes.
Tolerated my insanity.
Yes, absolutely. And that was the that's what you did when you were wrestling. That's what you did if you were in wrestling. It took over your life. I read this book. I read Slobberknocker as well. In fact, I read Slobberknocker when I got under the black hat, and to kind of refresh myself with some of the stories. I want to ask you before we get into the book and AEW. As I mentioned, my first exposure to professional wrestling was Mid-South Wrestling back in the very early 80s. And, of course, loved hearing you doing commentary with Bill Watts and Joel Watts. Probably the match I think of the most when it comes to Mid-South was Ted DiBiase and Ric Flair for the NWA World Title, and Dick Murdoch posted DiBiase, and then DiBiase comes back out with that huge bandage, and you can see the blood seeping through, and still wrestled a hell of a match with Ric Flair. Do you have like a favorite moment, and I'm sure you get asked this a lot, a favorite moment, favorite match that you called or were witness to during those days in Mid-South Wrestling?
Oh gosh, Mid-South. Well, that's certainly one of them, because that was probably one of the best executed storyline, quote unquote, angles that I've ever been a part of. So believable, has so many different layers. It got so many people involved in a positive way. It forwarded multiple stories. It was great booking by the Big Cowboy, no doubt about that. So
yes, sir.
It was good stuff. Very graphic. It's hard to believe we could make that much drama, create that much chaos in that entire Mid-South region, because we were running many of those cities every week, and business was very, very good at that point in time because of the drama that we created with a 3-camera shoot in front of a studio audience of maybe 100 people. It's just amazing to me how that worked out, and then so it probably was the most impactful. Mid-South, it's not Mid-South, but it's a derivative of it. It was fun going to Tulsa every other Sunday and doing the TV shoot from the Tulsa Convention Center, because we went from the Irish O'Neill Boys Club of 100 people to a venue that seated, like, I guess probably, it's not a huge arena, but probably 5, 6, 7,000 for wrestling. But that's a culture change. So that was kind of a cool thing to get in that environment. But the DiBiase, Flair, Murdoch, Watts involved, that storyline was just was art.
It's true.
Shakespearean art, and so you picked out a good one there. I did another match, very memorable, that had Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer in it might have been a coal miner's glove match. It was a violent match with a lot of blood. And the one I think I voiced over that I recall the most vividly was probably done in Houston with Paul Bosch's operation back in those days. But Duggan and Buzz had no issues beating the hell out of each other, and not so you didn't see through the art portion. It was more sports oriented. It wasn't just the art portion. They beat the hell out of each other, and if you sat at ringside or anywhere in the arena, you can see that this looks like it's real. So we were able to suspend disbelief, and the illusionists in the ring were able to pull it off, and it was great.
Absolutely. I talked to Hacksaw Jim Duggan years ago, and he talked about how brutal those coal miner gloves matches were whether it's Buzz Sawyer, Ted DiBiase, whoever. And he talked about how hard those things feel when they get planted on your skull, and how much blood you lost from those. Those coal miner glove matches also that's one of the iconic stipulations that Mid-South Wrestling did, and did it to perfection. So let me ask you this. So Under the Black Hat picks up right where Slobberknocker left off, with you getting ready to call The Rock versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 15. What made that night so pivotal in your career, where that's kind of the split point between the two books?
That's a good question. I think maybe I had been out of action. For us from the South, Southwest, whatever we are, it all depends on who's talking. But for those folks like me, from where I'm from here in Oklahoma, folks in Texas, sometimes we don't talk like everybody else. Sometimes our accent and our dialogue is unique to us. I'm proud of that. But I was out of action. The Bell's palsy had got me again pretty hard, and I thought, to be quite honest with you, much like this damn virus, but not nearly as serious, obviously. I didn't know how I was going to end up. How am I going to heal? If I am going to heal to some degree, how much will it be? Will I ever be able to regain my smile? Will I always have a somewhat of a speech impediment now because of my paralysis from the Bell's palsy? So I really believed at that point in time that this could very well be it for me. I could see Vince saying, well, he acquiesced to two guys I signed that I brought into the company in Austin and Rock. He knew that I meant a lot to those guys and them me. So maybe it was a good going away deal for JR. I was really leery of all that stuff. I was leery that I was overthinking it and whatever, but I just didn't know. So, anyhow, I thought that might be my last ride. So consequently, that's why it was so special in that regard. And the fact that it was Steve and Rock, and it was big time business. It was two guys that I had amazing confidence in, and I was so proud that we were able to recruit them and sign them. And I'm sure if good old Darrell Royal was around right now, he'd say the same thing about Earl Campbell. You just knew when you got him, he was going to be great. And I just knew when we got both those guys that they were going to be great, but we didn't get them at the same time. So the roads crossed, and when they did, we capitalized on that with 3 WrestleMania main events, 15, 17, and 19. So it was real important for me to get back in the saddle, if only for one more time, and go out somewhat on my terms. But luckily for me, Vince always liked my work more often than not. Philosophically, we didn't always get along, but be that as no big deal. So I was important for me to, if I'm going to leave, I want to leave by God standing up. I want to leave on my own. I want to walk out of my own power. And that's kind of how I looked at that thing. But the other thing is, because of the magnitude of Rock and Austin and Rock, it was a matter of, I felt like I wanted to do something good for those guys, other than give them contracts and manage their affairs in WWE. But I wanted to do something that they could recall, they could listen to, and so that's kind of what we try to do. So there's I put a lot of pressure on myself. I did that a lot until I found out, that here in the last few years that, stress and pressure is not good for Bell's palsy recipients. So I've tried to chill out a little bit, but back in those days, man, I was wound tight, but I was also being a realist, Stu. I just thought this might be it. So if it's going to be it, by God, let's make it a good one.
Well, and I think that's the case with any of us that, love what we do, whether it's, calling wrestling or sports radio or whatever. You put a lot of stress on yourself because you want perfection. And no matter how hard it is to achieve that, you drive yourself to make that happen. And by the way, not only lucky for you, but lucky for wrestling fans that you had many more moments behind the mic in WWE and now currently with AEW. Let me ask you this. You mentioned, you've had ups and downs during your run in WWE. Vince bringing you back so many times after he realizes that, yes, you are just that damn good, to use a certain wrestler's catchphrase. Was there a point when coming back was the hardest?
Oh, as you in the beginning of some of those departures and returning, those were challenging. It actually got a little bit easier going along because it became same as. It didn't have the shock value anymore. It didn't have the impact it had anymore. And I just took it like another day at the office, knowing that it could change at any moment. My wife never understood that. She never understood that. The most vivid thing I can remember with her in that regard was I woke up from, I was on a morphine drip, or just getting out of intensive care from colon surgery. And then that Vince did the Dr. Heine thing in LA. in the last segment of Raw. He saved the last segment of Raw, not for wrestling, but to pull my head out of my ass on television. So, I woke up and she was crying, and I thought she might have got a bad call. Her mother was elderly, whatever, her father. She had watched the show, watched Raw, and I was passed out. And she told me what happened, and then she asked this poignant question: why does he do that? I said, honey, I have no idea. And years ago, I tried to find the idea. It's fight and fight and fight. I got to find the answer to this question. I got to solve this problem. Well, some problems in our lives are unsolvable. Sometimes we don't have the control or the power or the influence or the positioning to solve some problems. So what we have to do as intelligent human beings is cut bait, man. Move on. So for years, I tried to solve everybody's problem. And some of them were unsolvable, as I mentioned. So I just told her, I said, I don't have an answer for you, honey. I don't know. I don't have any idea why he does. She says, well, he's like, he reminds me of Michael Jackson or Walt Disney. I said, how the hell you get that? Because he's created his own world, and that's what he lives in. And you stop and think about it, you rarely see Vince in the last several years, even before that, out in a non-wrestling event. He's all about business. That's his deal. And it's pretty amazing to me that she was able to pinpoint that, comparing Vince McMahon to Walt Disney and Michael Jackson, I'd never heard that before.
But it does kind of make sense. I think you're right. Talking with Jim Ross, one of the best commentators in the world. Follow him on Twitter at JRSBBQ. You have a chapter in the book talking about the first version of the XFL, where you talked about, of course, doing commentary and doing play-by-play. And something you said really struck a chord with me. You said that Vince, when he wasn't necessarily a football guy, but then again, when he started in the wrestling business, he wasn't necessarily a wrestling guy. And I wanted to ask you, how valid do you think that is today with his view that it's not wrestling, it's sports entertainment? Does that go along with kind of that whole wrestling guy? He sees himself almost like an entertainment mogul.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be known as a wrestling impresario or wrestling czar or wrestling genius. Entertainment is his deal. He's traded pro wrestling for entertainment, sports entertainment, more specifically. Examples are simple. In AEW, I suggested this, and Tony Khan and his staff agreed that we should have time limits in our matches. What sporting events can you name off your head, boom, 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 that don't have any time limits? And the reason I asked that question is because I was told when I signed on with Tony Khan, he wanted a pro sports-like presentation. In other words, Tony grew up a big fan of Mid-South because he's watched all the archive stuff, UWF, NWA. He liked the wrestling that had a certain style, a certain athletic feel. So I said, well, we should have time limits. Because to me, one of the biggest exposés in pro wrestling are these companies that don't have any time limits. But somehow or another, each show times out just perfectly. We do things inadvertently, I'm assuming inadvertently, or just out of ignorance, that pulls the veil back a little bit. We know what's behind the curtain. We get it. But you don't have to show me all the time. You don't have to prove it again and again and again that this is showbiz and we're play fighting. So I think that Vince is he's created a monster. And look, to have a pro wrestling based business that he has and be able to go public and do all the things and the growth that they have, the rights fees with Fox and NBC Universal, is nothing short of extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And if people don't like Vince McMahon, he pisses them off. He pisses me off sometimes too, back in the day. Not anymore. Even though we're friends, we communicate. Mm-hmm. I just think that he can't be blamed for everything, but he's got to be given credit for the success of what he's created. More wrestlers in his company and what his company has influenced are making more money now than they've ever made in any era in the entire history of pro wrestling. That's a hell of an accomplishment. That's a hell of a statement to make. And those might not want to do it because of their ego, but they got to give credit to McMahon. Hence why so many people are panicking, because some of their biggest hits of the year occurred during WrestleMania week. The indie shows, all these different things are going on. The Q&As, all these different things are happening. They're not happening now. Everybody's feeling it. So they realize now how important WWE was to them for their WrestleMania week activities, but they damn sure were reluctant to give McMahon a little credit because he has changed their business. And I find that somewhat eye-rolling. He has changed it.
Yeah.
That's like saying, who the hell created a goddamn wishbone? Excuse my language. I'm mad about that. They ruined football. Okay.
I get you. Talk with Jim Ross. There's you mentioned your late wife, Jan. There's a wonderful theme throughout Under the Black Hat about her and how much she supported you and backed you up. And I mean, through everything that you went through, she was always there to help pick you up and dust you off and get you back to what you were doing. Is there something every day that kind of reminds you that she's watching over you?
Yeah, several things. Music is a big one. We both like to go to concerts, and we were, big fans of the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac, among others. We saw a lot of concerts, Clapton and all these classic rock guys from our generation. So if I'm in my truck and I got the radio on and it's not on talk radio, I can't hardly make a trip to grocery stores without hearing a song that reminds me of her. And for a while, it was a little daunting. I'm thinking, I've got to get past this. I'm tired of going to the grocery store and crying on the way back home. Not because I forgot what I was getting at the store. I forgot my list, or it was too expensive. Because I'm hearing this music, it reminds me of her and where we were when. So music is a big thing that really I remember. And the other thing is that my wife was a very aggressive and active collector of memorabilia. So as I look around the walls of my home, I see piece after piece after piece of memorabilia, rock memorabilia, sports memorabilia. I own John Wayne's last hairpiece, for example. I own John Wayne's hat he wore, and she wore a yellow ribbon. I own 3 pair of his cufflinks. I always wear 1 pair to pay-per-view. I own his last cigarette lighter. I don't use it. I own his his letter opener. All that stuff she bought from birthdays, holidays, anniversaries. That's her. So she's still here. I just can't see her, but I can feel her here. And a nice lady that works named Sue DeRosa works for WWE. Has been there forever. They're still there now. Was there long before I got there. She and Jan were great buddies. They went to a lot of concerts together because we had privilege to get tickets to the Garden and all this stuff. So if I was working or I was tired or had something to do, I wouldn't go. She'd go with Sue. And Sue sent me a wind chime. And she says, when you hear this, you know she's near. So now I almost look forward to these crazy-ass windy days here in Oklahoma that we all encounter, can relate to some degree. And I hear those chimes, and I know her presence is felt. And so a lot of little things. Yeah. It's making me sound like I'm a crazy old bastard, but, these are things we need to hold on to. I covet these memories. I covet my time with this woman. And I was very lucky. I've been very blessed in many, many ways, more than I'd probably deserved. But there's a lot of little tales that remind me of her every day.
I will admit, when I read those last few paragraphs, I teared up a little bit, and not ever even this is not even meeting her, but you could hear from and you could just see from what your words how special she was, and how like you call her your angel, and you can see absolutely that she is an absolute angel, and that really touches my heart. We're talking with Jim Ross. Real quick, I want to touch on AEW. It's been 6 months since, or almost 6 months since Dynamite debuted, and what a ride! And it just seems like you and Excalibur and Tony Schiavone have created such great chemistry. In your time as a commentary team, Correct me wrong, but it just sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun nowadays.
We are, and we're allowed to do our own business. We're allowed to create our own content. And we're not being told what to say. We're not being corrected at every turn in the road. We're not being addressed in a caustic way whatsoever. We all three like each other. I have no issues. People say, well, your Excalibur is doing a lot of play-by-play. That's by design, my design. Nobody told me that. He's better suited in that role. And it's about the team, how the team performs. You think Tony did play-by-play recently by himself, well, with Cody and Kenny Omega. But we get along well. I'm the point guard. It's up to me to get those guys the ball and get us from point to point. But I like working with them. They're fun to be around, and we are having fun. We make each other laugh. For goodness sakes, it's pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. We love it. A lot of us have always loved it for various reasons. We fall out of love and in love with it for various reasons. But at the end of the day, it's a show business presentation with outstanding athletes doing their own stunts. Yeah. And hopefully with a storyline that if you allow yourself to, that you can get lost in. So we're all got the same, we're all lifelong fans. For Excalibur, he grew up listening to Tony and me. So it's an interesting chemistry out there, but we are having a blast. And I think since October, Tony Khan may have spoken to me on the headset within no more than 5 times. And it was just to remind me of something or something had changed, to give me an update on where we're going next. But and Keith Mitchell's in the truck. I worked with Keith since he came to WCW back in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. And so we've been together forever. And he's soft-spoken, and he condenses his sound bites, unlike me right now. And he's really, really good at keeping the talent focused and not distracted. So I'm lucky to be on that team. I'm really having fun with those guys, and I believe that the longer we go, the better we're going to get. We should anyway. If we don't, that's our fault. We should get better. And but I look forward to working with those guys every time, and I'll just be glad when this damn virus thing is over for many, many reasons. But one of them, so we can all return to somewhat normalcy with what we love to do, especially as it relates to what we do for a living.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It does. I mean, every week watching AEW Dynamite, it does come across you guys are having fun, and I've been lucky enough being good friends with Dustin Rhodes, being backstage at several of the AEW events here in Texas, including the most recent one here up in Cedar Park. That just watching it's such a collaborative effort and such a positive mind frame backstage, and it's so cool to watch, and just it does my heart good. He is Jim Ross. I know you love Gordon Soley, and I was a fan of Gordon Soley, but I tell you what. To many people, you are the greatest voice in wrestling, and that I'll put that statement out as well. I'll put you right up there with Gordon and Bob Caudle and all of them. But Jim Ross, catch him on AEW Dynamite Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT. Once this virus gets done, and follow him on Twitter at JRSBBQ. Jim, is there anything you need to plug? By the way, I know you got the barbecue stuff still going, right?
Well, I got my website, JRSBBQ.com. JRSBBQ.com. It costs nothing to look, and you can buy my book there. I'll ship it to you for free in the lower 48. And I'll personalize the autograph if you choose, which I'm happy to do and encourage you doing. If you want to get it as a gift for somebody and have me inscribe something that you think is funny or they'll really get a kick out of, I'm happy to do that. But it's a great offer where you're getting a free bookmark, a custom bookmark we had made, and the book, the hardcover version of the book, the personalized autograph, and free shipping. That's about as good as we can get that done. So that's at JRSBBQ.com. And while you're there, you can see we make my mama and my wife's recipes, barbecue sauce, two flavors of barbecue sauce. My favorite of the whole lot is the jalapeno honey mustard. Got 1 gram of sugar in it. And me being diabetic too, I've got to pay attention.
Right.
And chipotle ketchup. I sell beef jerky, homemade beef jerky made with eye of round. It's not made in bulk. It's made by the order. When I place the order, they make it. And so, I believe that my buddy that makes my jerky used to be a traveling barbecue contestant back in the days before it got big on television, back, on cable. And he won a bunch of national contests using his rub. Well, I discovered his rub is not only great on the grill, it's great in stovetop vegetables. It's great on popcorn. It's a lot of things. So we have that seasoning. So we got some interesting products. They're all family oriented. They're all family produced. And hopefully some folks will check it out. JRSBBQ.com, the book offer, and all the good food. Because, man, I don't know about you down there, buddy, but there ain't no off grilling season for me.
You're absolutely right. Barbecue season is year round, especially down here in Central Texas.
Of course, and it's also healthy.
It is.
I can load up, I can go chicken fry me a steak as good as the next guy. But then I need that lift motor to get me through the night, so to speak.
Well, true.
But I like going on that grill. I like being outside. I built me an outdoor kitchen. I got a big TV out there. I'm living my best life, man. But I can owe that to the fans and my business I've been in, and God willing, it's going to continue on. And I tell my kids hate this term, but I realize I'm on the back nine. I get it. But I'm not on the 18th hole yet. So let's play. Let's continue to play and enjoy life and get everybody healthy and move past this virus. And maybe, you might just want to read a good book.
Absolutely. And that good book is Under the Black Hat. You heard him. You can get it at jrsbbq.com or wherever books are sold. Get it. I promise you. It is a fantastic read. And just it will warm your heart. It will give you a lot of laughs and a lot of good wisdom. Jim Ross, as I mentioned, I've been a fan for, well, I guess now that we're in the 20s, I hate to say this, 5 decades. I'm 51, so I'm a little younger than you, but I've watched you pretty much my entire life. So thank you so much for this time. It's a huge honor to talk to you. It was a huge honor to meet you back in December in Garland, and all the best to you, my friend. And any time you want, I'll bring you on. We'll talk about the Red River rivalry. I say Texas OU, of course, but I know you say OU Texas. But nevertheless, I do want to bring you back when that rivalry hits. We gotta have a little fun with that. So, but until then,
I know when we play.
That's right.
Saturday in October.
That's right, at the Cotton Bowl. So,
I'm right. Let's don't ever change that.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
I'm not interested in home and home.
No,
I've had as much fun traveling to Austin as anybody should be allowed to have. It's a great town. I love the food, the nightlife, the whole 9 yards. Mark Henry lives there. Undertaker lives there.
Mm-hmm. Dustin.
I'm sure there are other guys.
Yeah. Dustin lives about 20 minutes from me.
Yeah. So there you go. So it's a great town, but I want to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
I want to go to Dallas on that weekend, the Red River rivalry weekend, and enjoy all the festivities. I like the rivalry, but for me now, maybe when I was younger, I wouldn't say this, but for me now, Stu, when the game's over, it's over.
Yes.
Until next year.
Yeah,
because I say this, and I'll leave you with this. I don't have any room in my carry-on any longer for negativity.
I love that. I'm going to use that one. I'll give you credit, but I'm going to use that one from now on. No room in my carry-on for negativity. I love that.
Nope.
Jim Ross, catch him on AEW Dynamite Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on TNT. Get his new book, Under the Black Hat. Jim, thank you so much.
Okay, Stu. Have a great day, buddy. Take care of yourself.